is Epidemic. Please join me in welcoming Atta'ya Brown.
This is Dawn. Early in life, Dawn recognized the need to change the trajectory of her life, what she had seen growing up. Like many young people, she decided that the military could be her way out. Dawn served in the U.S. Navy for approximately 7 years. 4 years active duty, 3 years in the reserve. Not only does the military offer a way out physically, there are many things that are shared with you on what will be available to you when you return. Stipends, health care, various forms of assistance, education. Unfortunately, when Dawn returned, she was met with nothing but financial hardship. Within a matter of 2 years, she found herself homeless. She found herself sleeping in her car for another 2 years. Very conscientiously choosing well-lit places such as hospital parking lots. But nonetheless, it was a very scary time. Prostitution, world's oldest profession. Simply, it's still around, still rearing its ugly head. The difference is that we're far beyond pimps and hoes. Now we have human sex trafficking. Men, women, yes, men, women, boys, and girls being stolen, being coerced into this age-old profession. Not long ago, I participated in a march against human trafficking. We walked down the streets of LA, and I was so taken aback. I was perplexed by what I would learn during this time. Not only were there streets that stood out, but there were locations. Maybe the Burger King that you drive through on a regular basis. That's known as the place to pick up young boys. Maybe it's a church. Well, they're not just there to give confessions. It's the place to pick up a certain type of woman. It was appalling. It was upsetting. It was disheartening. And it got me to thinking, much like this state of human sex trafficking is also the state of homelessness. Simply put, it's an epidemic. It is just that. Los Angeles County has over half of the count of homeless people within the United States alone. If that doesn't alarm you, I don't know what else will. Fellow Toastmasters, it joys my heart that you've taken the time to be here with me today, because it shows me that you have an equal concern for this epidemic. Your willingness to learn lets me know that you're also willing to go forth and educate others. And so today I'm going to take the time to educate you on this epidemic, let you know where we stand as a city, and then what we can do as individuals to move this epidemic not forward, but out of its current state. So first, let's be real. Like many things, until it hits home, we don't think about it. I recently was watching a video that was sent to me. It was a sermon. And the pastor was speaking about a couple in the congregation who had a son who was struck with a very rare type of cancer. So he shared this moving story and how they found themselves financially distraught. These two parents trying to take care of their child, neither one wanted to work. How could you? This is their 5-year-old in the hospital. They were traveling across the United States. How do you take care of yourself in another state, health care, house, so forth, and you still have your house and belongings at home? Well, they decided to start a fund and raise money. Thanks be to God, their son has pulled through. But it motivated them to continue this fund. They began to think about the other families that are also going through this. Now, was that a noble cause? Absolutely. But again, we often don't think about these causes until they've touched home. So Los Angeles. Just a little over a week ago, our LA Mayor Eric Garcetti, he released his proposed budget for 2016, which will start the fiscal year July 1st. In this intense push, he has a few issues to tackle because of the $138 million that he has decided to put towards this epidemic. Half of it, he doesn't know where the money is going to come from yet. The other portion, he believes will come from the selling of prominent city properties for development for low-income housing projects. LA has long received criticism for how they've handled this epidemic, much like how we handle transportation. Why is LA just now getting metro lines? We should have subway lines, under, above, carpool lanes. We need them just as much as any other city or state. New York, Japan. Why are we just now getting basically the maglev train, which I did a report on when I was in high school and presented it to the Navy. And we're just now going to get this type of train to go through California. So LA, we're behind, but we are making strides forward. And again, that is shown by your presence here today. But it always baffles me as well, is it's so interesting how we can come up with millions of dollars for a stadium, but we can't get together 4 walls and a door to clean up the streets around the stadium. Something to think about. On April 25th, nearly 800 men and women gathered for the United Way's, I believe it was called the Women's Summit, excuse me. Now, how many people are Scandal fans? Anyone here? Okay. So Olivia Pope, also known as Kerry Washington, was actually the keynote speaker amongst approximately 40 other guest speakers for that event. But if you're unfamiliar with the United Way, their mission is creating pathways out of homelessness for all persons. And they are not just a national organization, they are international organization. It was awesome to see such a prominent and well-known face that we are seeing on a regular basis there amongst other people. Kobe Bryant is a spokesperson for United Way's Home Walk. In 2013, I had the pleasure of participating in that home walk. His wife, his children are all there. There are several avenues that are available to us, and I do believe that Los Angeles is ready for the change. So how do we assess where we are? We do what we call the Greater Los Angeles Count. Now, as we all know, LA County is huge. It takes in many cities. So the count that you see behind me is inclusive of all of these areas except for Pasadena, Los Angeles, and one other location, which I believe I show on the next slide. What you'll see here, these are the 2016 counts that were just taken in January of this year. 44,000 persons were counted as being homeless within our county. And you see further breakdowns. Here you see by household type. Are they individuals? Are these families? Are these unaccompanied minors? Unaccompanied minors hold a special place in my heart, right? Because when we see them most often, we'll have no idea that they're homeless. They have on their jacket, they have on their backpack, and maybe we just think they're walking home from school. But why are you out walking home from school at midnight? It takes us expanding our thought process and questioning more, why are we seeing certain things on a regular basis? Here I show an additional diagram of the subpopulations. We often think that the only people on the streets have a mental disorder, but there's so much more. We have the chronically homeless. Those are people who find themselves in repeated cycles or long cycles of homelessness. Homeless families, mental illness, substance abuse, veterans, persons with HIV/AIDS or other medical situations, domestic violence, physical disability, and there's more. These are just some of the larger numbers. So I decided to point out Spa 8, the South Bay, since we are technically into the South Bay in this area. Many of us may reside in the South Bay. In the South Bay alone, we saw an increase of homeless families and chronic homelessness. Why do I show this? Because we often think that there's no homelessness around me or where I live, when in fact, you'll see here, this is a breakdown of all of our spas. So we have 8 spas that are counted here. Glendale and Long Beach. That was the other city that is not included. So this is the breakdown in which you can get specific numbers that you see here on the side. But from 2013 to 2015, there was a 16% increase. In LA alone, in Mayor Garcetti's term, we've had, I believe it was a 23% increase in LA alone. I'll just go back quickly to share that 2015 actually marked the largest homeless census in the nation. And this year, in 2016, there were over 7,500 people who volunteered over a 3-night span to get the numbers that you see before you. As I mentioned earlier, there are many ways that you could participate. In 2013, I had the privilege of taking a group of youth from my church and we did the 5K run walk. It started around Exposition Park, USC, and we walked through many of the areas where we do see so many of these persons that are affected by this epidemic. And you'll see Kobe and his wife there. Last but not least, the count is actually done by the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, or what we call LAHSA. Simultaneous of Mayor Garcetti releasing his budget and these count numbers coming out, it's wonderful news to report that LAHSA has also received and secured additional grant money to offer more permanent and transitional housing for persons affected by homelessness. Last year, from July 1st, well, actually 2 years ago, from July 1st, 2014 to June 30th of 2015, they did a trial run, if you will, of a new service. And they were able to house over 1,500 people between permanent and transitional housing. This was an awesome, awesome accomplishment. Because of that and their other continued efforts, the authority has ensured a 93.5% long-term housing success rate. So is it an issue that we don't know what works? No, we know what works. We need the additional housing. So now that brings me to how you all can go from this place to furthering your assistance. Together, we can end homelessness. There's no doubt about it. Permanent housing and supportive services have proven as the model for ending homelessness. Success rates are over 85%. Your financial support, your time, and your voice are equally important. Now, I recognize that we cannot all financially give. But last week I was listening to a radio station I regularly listen to in the morning. And it caught me when the host said, well, if everyone just gave $1, how much money would we have? It would be more than we started with. And it made me think, because we often think, well, I don't know if I have 100 to spare or 25 to spare. But do we have a dollar? Maybe the dollar we put into the vending machine during the week. Also, I urge you to start with awareness. What you've done here today. Going forward and taking this knowledge, sharing it. But also then starting within your own home. I used to be the director of a transitional housing group that serviced 18 to 24-year-olds. Most of these were young women that found themselves pregnant and were kicked out of their homes. Their mother, guardian, whoever it was said, well, you can have the baby, but you won't be here with me. We often overlook these persons. And we don't think that maybe just because they're living with a friend or they're living, that they are in fact dealing with a form of homelessness. They are not in their home and often find themselves in situations where they lose their children because they have no home address to give, or sleeping in their cars. Another may be the cousin, maybe a friend who says, I'm experiencing some issues and it's quite possible I'm going to get evicted. Now, can we all invite them home with us? That may not be our reality. But now, you all know a few things that you didn't know before. That you could say, I know of a service. Why don't I get on the phone and make some calls for you? Let's locate some places that may be able to assist you. One of the things that my girls loved was when people would drop off donations. We all have things we don't want, but think about donating to a shelter, a transitional housing facility, and so forth, where they're not having to purchase any of these items. They can just go and choose what they need. They loved it, whether it was clothing or household items, that they could spruce up their room a little bit and make it feel a little bit more like home. Last but not least is, of course, participating in events like this, like Home Walk. Just like any other marathon, you get people to sponsor you. And all of those funds then are turned over to organizations like United Way, LASA, and so forth, who are working diligently to end this epidemic. So today, I see us on a great path. I see a trajectory that looks bright. Dawn was able to finally get the assistance she needed. It took time, but the VA was able to guide her in a way that she is now in permanent housing and is stable for the time being. But with you all here, your awareness has been heightened, and I know that we can move past the pictures you see here. Thank you.